Hey, I got a super great question on my channel today while I was out working with Zen. I'm going to add the new video later, but I wanted to update it because I think it's important to explain to you guys what it is exactly that I'm doing if you're not familiar with the Extreme Mustang Makeover. So for anyone who doesn't know, the Extreme Mustang Makeover is a competition that's sponsored by the Mustang Heritage Foundation every year in the United States. There's over 40,000 wild Mustangs that were taken off the range and are in holding facilities all across the western United States. And those holding facilities are just temporary places for them to live until we can find adopters for them. But the thing about a wild Mustang is it takes a lot of knowledge and skill to bring it from wild to domestic. And not everyone who rides horses knows how to do that. So for the case of Zen here, she's been in a holding facility for about 2 years up in Idaho. She was rounded up in Nevada when she was around 4 years old. So she's 6 years old now, and her tag number was drawn for the Extreme Mustang Makeover. That's when I went to pick her up at the very beginning of June. So the Extreme Mustang Makeover's purpose is to connect wild horses with the people capable of training them, to train those wild horses so they're capable of living domestic lives, and then to find homes for those horses so that they don't have to spend their lives in small pens and holding facilities. There are certain places in the American West where these horses can run free and wild, but the fact of the matter is, no population is ever perfect. And if you've learned in beginner science, you know that when an ecosystem is at equilibrium, all of the animals can provide for themselves. But what happens when animals can do that? They reproduce. And what happens when animals reproduce? They get to a point where they overpopulate the ecosystem. So that's why our horses are rounded up, because there's areas where they overpopulate because they were healthy and they did reproduce in years past. And as they overpopulate, now we have horses that can't find enough food, that are competing for their food, or sometimes they're just trying to move out of an area that could support them because there's too many of them, and they end up in places that are not friendly to horses, alongside highways and places where they could get hurt or injured by people driving or just trying to manage farms and ranches. So that is where these horses come from. We round them up to protect them. The Bureau of Land Management does a really good job of caring for them, and they do everything in their power to make sure that they go to good homes. But sometimes, even still, people will adopt these horses and not really know what they're getting into. And if this is a wild horse that they can't tame, then what ends up happening is they try and pass it on to someone who can. And if a horse gets passed around enough, oftentimes it'll end up somewhere where it really doesn't want to be. And that's just the fact of the matter. Not everyone is set up to care for these guys. But the more training I can give her, the better of a life this horse is going to have. And as sad as it is that I'm going to have to say goodbye in a few short weeks in the middle of October, I know that if I didn't come along and volunteer to do this competition, Zen would probably have stayed in holding for most of her life. Unfortunately for her, I think she's beautiful, but she's a solid chestnut color. It's a pretty average color for a horse. And oftentimes the horses that are adopted first are the ones that are colorful. I picked out Zen because I love her personality, I love her intelligence, and I think she has an incredible conformation for a Mustang that is going to make one crazy talented sport horse for someone. She's big enough and thick enough that anyone can ride her, so I'm really hopeful that with this training, she's going to be able to find a really good home in the future. If you are interested in adopting a wild Mustang, we are going to be competing at the Extreme Mustang Makeover in October of 2021. It's in New Jersey. And you can go to the Extreme Mustang Makeover website, which I've linked below in the description of this video. And you can actually even apply to be a bidder at this Mustang Makeover. If you're watching this video after that competition has ended, don't fret. There's a Mustang Makeover every year. So all these different trainers get together. They try and train these horses in 100 days. I've said from the beginning, I don't know where we're going to be in 100 days. I don't know if we're going to even be competitive or riding. But I do know that every bit of foundation that I've put on this horse is good and it's solid. And wherever she goes next, she can learn from it. Oh my God, she's laying down. Oh my God. This is the first time she's done this, guys. Okay. Well, as you can see, we have a really good horse here.